What's up, everybody? It's me, Retrovan, and we're at another review. And I think it's the perfect time because this video is to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of Crash 4 releasing. And what better way to celebrate than doing a review of it, since at the time it came out, I didn't really do reviews. So, yeah, let's get on to it. I'll give you all my opinions and talk about why I think it's a really good game and possibly one of the best Crash games, honestly. Go into the store and everything, I am inclined to mention that there is a Bandicoot battle part, and that's mainly for like mini games and all that if you have more than 2 players. I don't have more than 2 players at the moment, so I can't really show off the footage, but it's not really much to write home about. It's just taking turns. It's like very old school multiplayer. You have a lot of good options here, gameplay controls, a lot of stuff like for new players especially, like you can go retro or modern. Basically retro and modern, the only difference is retro is lives and modern is no lives. You know, time travel goes, enhanced shadows and all that. And it's really nice. I like it. It's enough accessibility for new players who don't really like the live system, which I don't mind with Crash, but still a good option. So, the game starts off with Cortex and N Trophy left off from Crash 3. Yes, this is a direct sequel to Crash 3, which, they never really explain it, but there's not really a direct, like, relation to the PS2 games. I don't know if that's still canon or not, but either way, it's still cool that they have consistency with the two. And basically, Uka Uka's trying to, like, get the portal, and it actually destroys them, funny enough. Now that they have their way out, N Trophy has, like, you know, reasons to take over the world. Along with Cortex, but you can tell that Cortex kinda doesn't want to, while N Trophy seems to be the mastermind behind everything. But yeah, with that main stuff out of the way, there is also the, fact that Crash thinks everything is nice and peachy. He's basically just, like, chilling on his hammock while Aku Aku is trying to warn him of this stuff, and, you know, accurately to the level name, it is a rude awakening for Crash to get on his adventure. Now, eventually, Crash ends up finding a mask, and that mask is basically giving him a power. And he finds out, along with Aku Aku and Coco, that each mask has their own separate power. And it would be helpful for them to get them to stop N Trophy and Dr. Cortex in the game. There's also a point where you run to Embryo, and the thing about Embryo is, after you beat him, the interesting thing is he releases a bunch of potions out into the levels, and that gives you the chance to do the alternate universes, which are actually really cool. They're not really much to write home about, like, as a whole, because they're just the same levels, but inverted. But unlike a lot of inverted levels, these inverted levels actually have, like, different uses. Like, some will have different, like, environment looks, or, you know, some will have different effects, like low gravity in some. And it's really cool. It gives you a reason to go back to levels rather than just, oh, it's an inverted version, which I commend it for. They also ended up meeting familiar and new faces in their adventure, including an alternate version of Tana. Dingledyle's back, but the thing about Dingledyle is he's no longer evil, so now you actually play as him in his like new little diner he's made. Both Tana and Dingledyle actually have really solid gameplay. They handle them pretty well. And to include it, there is a point in the story where Cortex does get betrayed, so because of that, Cortex basically just says, hey, I'm good now, I guess, and he starts working with the Bandicoots and all that. And the cool thing about it is you can even play as him a little later in the game. Not as much as the other characters, of course, because, you know, his addition's a little later, but his gameplay sections are pretty deep. They're a lot different from the other characters, whereas they're more action-oriented or jump-oriented. Cortex is more, I guess it's still kind of jump-oriented, but his is more puzzle-oriented jumping rather than the action-packed jumping you'd see from some of the other characters. Eventually, you end up finally confronting N Trophy and his clone. Yes, he does have a clone, or an alternate dimension counterpart, I should say. And him and her are basically like the final boss together. It's like a, I don't know what you call it, like a dual final boss. And once you beat them, you think that's the end of the game, but no. There's a big twist.
Struth, who cooked it? Heat was too high. That's why it was all rubbery inside. Subpar grill marks too.
I liked the pickled wumpa leaves.
Cortex, you cad! Why did you not see it before?
Give him hell!
And yeah, just a word of note, because I'm probably not really going to talk about this section past the story part. This section is really annoying, and whoever made it, what the fuck, bro? That's all I gotta say. Just a note. And in probably one of the coolest twists I've seen in a game story, Cortex becomes the bad guy at the end again. Because you think, you know, Cortex wouldn't be the bad guy, like, because it's N Trophy who's mainly doing all this stuff, but by the end, no, Cortex is back as the bad guy, but now his intent is destroying Crash as a whole, so it's usually, like, for Cortex, right, for most games, it's him taking over the world, but they gave him a reason. Now he just has, like, pure, you know, personal revenge against Crash. He wants Crash to not exist. He was going back in time to when the first game took place to stop him from being created. So he actually runs into his other Cortex, who, funnily enough, thinks that he's a faker. And now there's that whole thing, and it's really interesting. Eventually he does, you know, top the the clone Cortex, and he becomes the final boss. So you basically fight him like twice in the game, which isn't a big deal because both fights are different enough to where it really doesn't affect much. But yeah, after you beat him, that's the end of the game, and he finally gets that vacation he always wanted. But then a figure shows up. I won't say what figure though. Alright, so with all the story stuff out of the way, I think would be a good time to show off the different movesets. So, Crash has the spin. This is a thing you can unlock if you beat the game. Not the spin, but this little dash spin. You keep the regular spin, of course. You have your double jump, which, unlike in the older games, you don't have to, like, get a power to get it. You just double jump. You have your slide, you have your slide jump. It's all pretty good, and a very standard move. Also that. The masks are really well utilized gameplay-wise. Some of them, like, can get annoying at sections, especially at the frickin' final level, which, if you couldn't tell by previous footage, I sucked at. They were kind of annoying there, but for the most part, they're utilized well throughout the game. I like them all, and each one of them has their own little quirk to it. Like, you have the one that phases objects like this mask, you have the one that slows down time, one that makes you do, like, a big jump spin, all the crazy ones, and I think they're all useful in their own way, in my personal opinion. You also have these levels you can unlock if you don't die in a level, which is cool because they brought back the whole concept from the first game of if you don't die, you get a reward. In the first game, it wasn't so fun because it was like, you know, to get a gem and all that, but here, you actually unlock more levels called flashback tapes, and these flashback tapes are what you want to get all the boxes in because, you know, it's not really mandatory, it's extremely optional, but if you want to go for 100%, you definitely have to do these levels. They are tough, but a lot of them are fun and interesting in their own ways. Now, there are a few that made me rage, I'm not gonna lie, but for the most part, I like them all. Wise, this game blew my mind. When I heard it was time-themed, just like, you know, Crash Warped, I was gonna be like, they're gonna repeat stuff, and they kind of do for a few sections, but there are so many levels, like, included in there that are their own thing, or different time periods. Some aren't even, like, super far away time periods. Like, there's a Dingle Dial one that's, like, last week or something. Or, you know, the Cortex one, which is just from, like, an older Crash game. So it's cool, there's still reasons, and I do have to note that there are really cool references throughout the game too. Some to fake Crash, you got ones to Skylanders characters like Eruptor, Spyro. It's all really cool, and I like all those Easter eggs. If you get enough boxes and gems, you also unlock skins for Crash and Coco as well, who is basically just a second Crash, which I'm cool with. I don't... You know, it's cool if they switch up the gameplay, but I like it the way it is. You get so many cool skins for each of them that you don't pay for. It's not pay to win, it's, you unlock it. Like, through the ringer, you have to beat the game for this one. Or, you know, like the embryo effects and all that. The very important stuff you get from it, which is really nice. And Coco has, like, different skins slightly, but they're all kind of based off of the Crash ones as well, which makes sense, because, you know, they are basically, skins of each other, like different versions and all that. And I love the fact that they brought back the island map. I have to note that because listen, I like the warp rooms from the later games, but The island map, like from Crash 1 and this, they got a unique style to them, because I like seeing them travel. That's the cool part about it. There are also vehicle riding sections, mainly where you ride animals or different like jet things, and most of them work pretty good. I didn't like the animal riding sections in the previous version, but they did fix it later, so the current version I'm playing, I do like them. But again, it's worth mentioning how annoying they have been previously, because I don't know if they updated on the PS4 version. I'd have to check or something. 100%ing this game is a pain in the ass, as I mentioned, and I will say good luck doing it, because I would not recommend so. Because you don't really get much out of it aside from like a secret ending, which you can look up on YouTube. But for those who are completionists, it's definitely not a fun time. Best of luck to that. And again, to go with the environments, they have like this alien planet one too, and different enemy types too. Like they have a ton of enemy varieties in comparison to all the other Crash games. It's crazy. And it really shows how much work the developers put into all these different enemies that you fight in the game and all that. The boss fights are also pretty good, but they are too easy in some of them, because there's not really like when you die, you don't restart the boss, which for certain bosses I'm cool with, but for some, like say Engine, I wouldn't have been too angry about them, starting me back. It is good for new players though, so as a whole, it's a net positive, I'd say. Even if I would have liked more difficulty in the bosses. One other thing I gotta mention too is, I like the different projectiles that each boss has too, because in some ways it feels a little less like a boss and more of an obstacle course, which, normally I wouldn't like, but I like it in this game. They handle it well. I like the whole, avoiding obstacles and doing all that, and it's a more common thing in these bosses than it was in, say, the older Crash games. The music in this game is very solid. I think you guys should give a listen to a few of them because they are really good. I'll give you guys a couple just to give you an example of how good the soundtrack is. Well, that was my review of Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and, yeah, it's a very fun review, and the game is very solid as a whole. I was really surprised with how well the new developers did, because, you know, even with the remake, I was kind of mixed with some of the stuff that was done in it, but I'm very happy to see that the Toys for Bob developers really did it well with this game, and I hope if they make, you know, a new Crash game, those will be the developers. With that being said, though, I hope you guys have a good one, and I'm out. Peace.